Well, hello there. Hello. And welcome to the Full Quarter Podcast. It's a live show. It's exciting. It's a live show. But what a week. This is your number one cricketing podcast coming out of South Africa. We talk all things South African cricket. Tim's team's in the One Day Cup final. They're playing against Northwest on Saturday. So please do watch out for that. They've had a great season. If you're in Cape Town, please get down to Newlands at 10 a.m. Go watch that. Then you can watch the rugby afterwards. So well done to the Springboks on that incredible win. It's been a whirlwind week, Tim. Last week, our podcast was, can South Africa get 2 wins in the week? Turns out we could only get 1 massive win and a loss that's quite embarrassing. But yeah, it's been a roller coaster week, Tim. Like every other South African, how's your blood pressure? How are you doing?
It's calmed down now. I'm a lot more relaxed than I was over the weekend. That's all I can say. Um, and just on the World Cup, I'm generally a lot more relaxed. I don't know if that is a good thing. I just think that win against England is massive in so many ways. After what happened against the Netherlands, I think it's such a motivation, and it's if that had been lost, I think this game tomorrow would have been absolutely crucial. Absolutely crucial.
And we're going to talk about that game. We are going to talk about that game. But remember, we have an audio version as well. If you want to listen to your podcast, it'll be up before tomorrow morning. So you can go home, driving to work, listening to the podcast, getting ready for this game, this preview. We're on Spotify at Full Quarter Podcast and Apple Podcasts and Full Quarter Podcast. Also on X, please interact with us on X as well as on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to be notified when we go live. So, yeah. So, speaking about that team, so this team is a interesting team because whenever South Africa play them in a World Cup, something has to go wrong from a South African perspective. Bangladesh beat us in the 2007 World Cup. They also beat us in 2019. And they present an interesting case because whenever South Africa gets a big win at a World Cup, like the win against Australia, there's always a moment where you're like, oh, these guys are going to let us down. And we got the Netherlands. Is that our opportunity? And so we're going to be talking Bangladesh. We're going to be previewing Bangladesh with Tawhid, who's a friend of our show, great Bangladeshi reporter, and at Sight Screen Cricket Journal. He's done a great job there. And so we always have him on to talk Bangladesh. And Tawhid, how are you doing? The last time we spoke, Bangladesh had won a one-day series in South Africa, and Aiden Markram led with that. Over the last 5 games we played Bangladesh have 3 wins and South Africa have 2 wins. So how are you feeling? And, how's everything in the Bangladeshi camp?
Yeah, no, well, I'm good on a personal note. How's everything in the Bangladesh camp? Yeah, I mean, it seems like a while ago now, doesn't it? That series down in SA, where like you say, Bangladesh did really well. And yeah, I wouldn't say that the wheels have totally gone off, but it's been a strange 2023. I mean, last year was by and large a pretty good one. It's certainly in ODI cricket. And, even going into this World Cup, they finished joint second on points in the World Cup Super League alongside England, although I'm not sure how much you can read into that given England's recent form. So, things were kind of looking okay. But, yeah, certainly in the last few months, things have kind of become a lot more unsettled, both off the pitch and indeed on the pitch. I would say generally there's a bit of a lack of defined, or there's a lack of definition when it comes to player roles, and also when it comes to things like having a settled batting order, for example. So yeah, a few things not quite going to plan, I guess. Plus, you could add in a couple of kind of gun players that Bangladesh were really banking on have just kind of gone off the boil, or picked up injuries, which we know can always be the case. So yeah, a combination of all of those things. means that, yeah, Bangladesh have only won one of their games in the first four that they played. But, I guess there's some sort of mitigating factors there. I mean, they have had a very tough schedule. So,
Mm.
apart from the first game, it was a solid performance against Afghanistan, but clearly Afghanistan hadn't woken up yet because you know we, we've just seen what they've done to Pakistan and also England
Mm.
going back a week or so. So, they played Afghanistan first up, beat them. It was a solid, unspectacular performance, I'd say. But since then, it was a bit of an unambitious kind of performance, I would say, against England. England batted first. They were put into
Mm.
bat by Bangladesh and they racked up a huge score. Bangladesh never really got close, and I think they kind of gave up the ghost about halfway through their batting innings, which is quite disheartening to see. And then, yeah, recently against New Zealand and India, they batted first, but just haven't been able to put up a competitive total. They basically put on similar sort of 240, 250, very, I wouldn't even call them mediocre totals, really. They're kind of not the sort of totals that you would expect teams like New Zealand and India to fail in terms of chasing. So yeah, it hasn't been a great kind of couple of weeks, I'd say, in the World Cup. But being positive, they've got to turn things around, and who's to say that tomorrow against South Africa might be that sort of springboard for them.
Well, if you win the toss and bat first this time, you have quite a lot of chance of beating the South African side. But the question that's always on my mind when I look at this Bangladesh side is last year it looked like you were on the up. Trajectory is looking good. You had done something not many Asian teams do in South Africa is win ODI series, right? And then on the other hand, you're sitting here at this World Cup. Obviously, you've gone through Afghanistan, you've had some three bad losses, but it seems like there's some ructions in the team. And the question I'm asking is, where's Tamim Iqbal? Because he was the reason why we lost that series outside of Tuscan. Ahmed, we'll talk about Tuscan later. But what's gone on with him and everything else that's happened around him?
Yeah, so I mean, how long have you got? But in a nutshell, I suppose Tomim's had, well, yeah, he has had sort of a series of kind of injury issues. Basically, yeah, a bad sort of back injury, which at his age it doesn't get resolved uh, very quickly, and it's something that can reoccur, I suppose. So anyway, to cut a long story short, yeah, leading up to the World Cup, um, he didn't play an awful lot of games, and yeah, basically there's a discussion with the Bangladesh Cricket Board where basically they sort of said to him, what's happening. He said, well, I feel that I will be fit in time for the World Cup, i.e., in time for the first game against Afghanistan in the World Cup. He sort of said that he would be fit. I think, BCB kind of had other ideas and weren't so sure. And so basically they asked him to sort of potentially back down the order if he was to be picked for the World Cup. That didn't sit very well with Tamim at all, which is a bit of a curious one. I mean, I can see it in both respects. I don't think in all his ODIs he's ever not played, at
As
position
an
number one
opener.
or number two.
Yeah.
But having said that, if you're that experienced, can it be that difficult to suddenly play at 3, 4, or 5? I'm not sure.
Mm.
But anyway, he was sort of having none of it. So yeah, essentially that was that. He's not been picked for the squad. And then to just kind of add a bit of fuel, well, more than a bit of fuel to the fire, Shakib Al Hassan then basically took
Said
up
we don't need players like that.
took up the captaincy, and basically a day or so, I think, before the squad were due to fly out to India, he gives an explosive sort of 30-minute interview on Bangladesh Sports Channel, basically just twisting the knife into Tamim, sort of saying there's no way that you can pick a half sort of fit player, and lots more besides. I mean, it was quite amusing for a number of reasons. I mean, we all know that Shakib's got quite a long charge sheet himself when it comes to various off-field misdemeanors, but also, you look at his recent past in terms of appearances for Bangladesh, and he does actually, to a large extent, pick and choose which kind of fixtures that he wants to sort of play in. So then to kind of be so vocal and critical for a teammate to kind of do the same is kind of quite hypocritical, I would say. But yeah, nonetheless, Shakib is the captain, and I don't know if it's quite ironic, but he has picked up an injury. So he picked up an injury. He picked up an injury, in which was it? The game against New Zealand, I think. He he's running between wickets, I think, for a sharp single, some sort of muscle strain in his thigh or in his quads. And so that actually kept him out of the India game. But, this is where things come back to haunt you, right? Because if you make very open, vocal criticisms about there's no way that, anyone less than 100% fit should be playing in a team, then naturally everyone's going to look at you the minute you pick up an injury in a high-profile scenario. So, it just goes to show that, sometimes keeping your silence is probably the best thing to do. That kind of alludes to those sort of off-field issues that have gone on. And then I would say even going actually in the World Cup, I'm not sure how much kind of credence or truth there is around potential kind of divisions between captain and coach. There's been some whispers around some differences in terms of I don't think team selection necessarily, but maybe sort of to do with the batting order and that kind of thing. So all in all, maybe not the happiest camp out there.
It always seems as if something like that is brewing either behind the lines or right in the face of it. And it's unfortunate for Bangladesh because they're a team that actually can't do without that sort of player. There are other teams that can survive, like South Africa, for example. We would love to have Nokia, but we are doing okay without him. We would do better with him, but we're doing all right that he's not there. But listen, I want to change tact a little bit. I want to be a little bit more positive. So what I have seen of Bangladesh, I've seen more of the bowling when I have watched, and I've been really impressed with the pace department. Every time I've seen them, I was impressed when they were in South Africa. Every time I see them, I see improvement throughout the progress over the last 18 months to 2 years. Just talk to us about that, about Tashkent's progress, Shawaful, Mustafa. Mustafa seemed to have lost it a little bit a short while ago. He seems to be back to our best. Just give us, and obviously Donald's influence. We know he's there.
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. Yeah, I mean, like you say, it is kind of one of the big positives, or it's weird because it should have been one of the big positives going into the World Cup. And I myself was kind of talking up this very point, and I spoke to Alan Donald a week or two before the World Cup, and as you would expect from a bowling coach, he was mega enthusiastic about the progress that the guys that you mentioned there had made. So guys like Tuskin, Shoreful, Hassan Mahmoud as well, who played in the last game. But it's kind of unfortunate because, yeah, for a combination of factors, maybe that I guess, like I was saying, leading into the World Cup, as you were sort of saying, that series in South Africa, a lot of those guys, bowled really well in the power play up front.
Mm.
They grabbed some early wickets and really kind of set the tone for the rest of that sort of bowling innings. But that just hasn't happened in this World Cup. So Tuskin, unfortunately, yeah, just looked really off colour in those first couple of games that he played in. So, against Afghanistan, I think his initial spell wasn't great. I think he came back and kind of bowled okay. But yeah, again, against England, it just didn't quite click for him. In Dharamshala, I know they were playing in a
Mm.
bit of sandpit in that particular ground, which probably didn't help. Well, I know actually that actually his the bowlers run ups as well were kind
Mm.
of quite a lot of sand on the surface there. So none of that sort of helps. And now, yeah, we learned that he's got some kind of shoulder injury, which kept him out of the India game. So yeah, you can't kind of underestimate how big a blow that's been that he hasn't been firing on all cylinders, because, like you say, that was a major kind of strength of theirs, or has been kind of leading into the World Cup. So yeah, that hasn't quite happened. But like you say, guys like Shoreful have kind of plugged away. I think Shoreful's got kind of 5 or 6 wickets so far in the competition. Mustafizur as well. Yeah, you're right. He seems to, that old kind of snap uh,
Spark.
spark. Yeah, exactly. Seems to be back, which is good news. But yeah, it's a difficult one because yeah, like I say, I for one really did sort of talk up that sort of fast bowling unit, and for various reasons it hasn't delivered. And I guess what is really disappointing, you look at their last 2 games. Okay, they batted first, they put up mediocre kind of totals, 240, 256, I think, against India, but they've only taken 5 wickets in those last 2 games, and that should really be quite concerning.
Yeah, I think it's quite concerning from a bowling perspective. And on the other side of the coin is the batting. And you mentioned that they've put up the mediocre scores. And I look at that, batting lineup. And obviously, we've already spoken about uh, Tamim Iqbal. But obviously, you've got guys like Litton Das, Shakib, lining a batting lineup that is and Mushrika Rahim, but you've got guys like Shanto who are, even when they're in South Africa, trying to get their name up there and set themselves. Tawhid Hridoy, and it necessarily hasn't necessarily happened, but it feels as though with all of this and all the changes, because even that batting lineup that the guys I've just said now, some of them didn't even play in South Africa, and so it's like you've taken a step back, and the question for going forward in this tournament, and obviously you've gone through the toughest, probably the toughest opponents, and I think South Africa is the end of the tough run, and then there's winnable games all the way through, and every time we play South Africa in a World Cup, you've beaten them, so it could also be winnable. But what will it take for these guys to actually step up and get to the form that the selectors had faith in them? Because it feels as though, especially in this World Cup, if you're going to bat first, you've got to have a top order that you can bank, and I think Bangladesh has struggled there.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. The batting just hasn't clicked, basically. And again, I think, yeah, there's a couple of reasons for that. As I was saying before, that there hasn't really been a settled, well-defined kind of batting order. It still seems a little bit all over the place in terms of people's roles and what role they're expected to perform in that batting order. And so, yeah, it's basically that issue around consistency. But that said, if you look at the batting order, so at the top, Liton Das, he scored a couple of 50s now. So he scored 50 against England and then 70 odd the other day against India. But then, in between, he got out first ball of the innings against New Zealand. But I think the thing with him that I would really like to see is that, just converting those, they're very easy on the eye, pretty kind of 50s, 60s, even 70s. But I think, what Bangladesh really need for him at this stage of his kind of development is, authoritative, innings defining big hundreds, basically. And yeah, so that's kind of what they'll be looking for from him. In terms of his partner, so it's quite interesting. Tanzid Hassan, who is basically the replacement for Tamim Iqbal, a string of low scores until just the other day when they played India, and he came good. He scored a really kind of thrilling 50 odd. I think it was better than a run ball in the end, but really looking to sort of take on some of those Indian bowlers, which was good to see. And actually, against India, that opening pair, I think they put on sort of 70 odd, maybe a bit more than that. And again, that's been a major problem in terms of Bangladesh finding themselves kind of 4 down for around about 100 runs. I think that's happened now 9 times in their past 12 ODIs. So actually, it was a really promising start against India, but it was that soft kind of middle that kind of undid all the good work. And, again, picking a couple of guys out from that middle order, you mentioned him there, Najmul Hussain Shantu, who, again, came into this World Cup as basically Bangladesh's most consistent kind of run scorer. I'm pretty sure in ODI cricket in 2023 or, in the last sort of 12-month period, he was certainly up there, if not the top scorer for Bangladesh. And yeah, he sort of got 50 odd, an unbeaten 50 against Afghanistan. But then, you really want someone like him to step up against England, against New Zealand, against India. But he just hasn't managed to do that. And then, guys like Tawhid Ridoy, again, haven't really made much of an impression. Even, Hassan, Mehdi Hassan Miraz, who I have some sympathy with because he's actually been shunted around the order a bit. I think he's actually batted in 3 different batting positions in the 4 games so far. So, yeah, it just hasn't quite happened in that respect. But having said that, weirdly, guys like Mushfiqur, the veteran keeper, and Mahmudullah, had played pretty well. Often they've come in with a team in dire straits, and they've tried to marshal the innings as best they can, but a lot of the time, it has been in sort of forlorn causes. But those guys, they've kind of kept their end of the bargain. If that middle order, I feel, kind of sorts itself out, then potentially, there's a good innings total there to be had. Maybe it all falls into place tomorrow. Let's hope.
Well, for you, yeah. For the rest of us as South Africans, we hope it's the game after this one. Yes, Tim.
You talk a lot there about, and I think it's been a perennial problem for Bangladesh, is consistency. And you mentioned there Mehdi Hassan. I'm a big fan of Mehdi Hassan, but it looks to me like the coaches don't know what he is. That seems to be the issue. For me, he's a bowler who is very useful with the bat, but if you're not going to be consistent with one of your brighter talents, then how can you expect the team to be consistent if you're going to keep mixing and matching him? He is going to struggle. So just talk to us about why do you think that's happening? Um, do you think he's okay with it? Do you think he's happy to go up and down, or do you think no? I would like to bat at say 6, and I'll be the strike bowler. What do you think is his best position and where he would like to be?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I guess no one likes to be sort of yo-yoed up and down the order, really. I think, yeah, like you say, it just speaks to the fact that I don't think the team management have quite worked out what his kind of best role in the team is. And I think, that's not a bad thing in some respects because it just shows his versatility. So he has actually opened the batting kind of in a few games leading into the World Cup. And we've seen in this World Cup he's batted as high as number 3. Um, so he's been tried out in those sort of top positions, but then he's also come down lower in the order as well. And yeah, I don't know, in terms of where I think he sits well, yeah, I mean, ideally, it's you want to kind of build the core of the team around not just him, but I'd say there's probably looking to the future, sort of 3 or 4 players that you want to build the core of the team around. I'd say Najmul Hussain Shantu is still one of those players, even though he's hasn't had a great trot so far. So he would naturally slot in at number 3. Litan Das obviously at the top of the order, and then yeah, Miraz, I would say probably his best position is probably number 5, but then you look at someone like Tawhid Ridoy, who had a lot of success in that sort of number 5 position, going into this World Cup. But he's actually found himself down the order a bit, or yo-yoing around the order a bit, which hasn't really helped him. And he's quite a young player as well. So yeah, I would say he certainly deserves a spot in the top 5, probably around that sort of 4 or 5 position. And Shakib himself, let's not sort of beat around the bush. He hasn't really done much with the bat so far in this World Cup. And it was quite interesting in 2019. He was, number 4 was his spot. It was just, his spot. He did, had a lot of success in that spot. But this time round, I'm not sure if he has. I think he's maybe only batted there once or twice so far. So he's been quite content to come in a bit lower down, and hasn't quite gone for him with the bat either. So yeah, I mean, lots to kind of ponder. But I would say still that one of Mehdi Hassan Miraz's greatest attributes is his versatility, and I'm sure if he gets a bit of a settled trot in whatever position, I think he will kind of come good with that.
Okay, he's actually quite a great cricketer, all-round cricketer, and he's the one who's giving me nightmares right now going into tomorrow. So what does a Bangladesh win look like tomorrow? I know Taskin's out. Shakib is a game time decision. But what does it look like, and who needs to step up in order to deliver victory for Bangladesh?
Yeah, I mean, it's all got to kind of come right, hasn't it? But and you mentioned it right at the top there, didn't you, about the toss? I think the toss is actually pretty important in Mumbai in those sort of crazy conditions that they were playing in, or seemingly, just the other day against England. I think, win the toss, you've got to bat first, really, and maybe take inspiration from that Netherlands performance against South Africa. Maybe use that as a bit of a template. Where what did they put up? It wasn't a huge score, was it? 250 odd, 260?
243.
Yeah, exactly. And Bangladesh are more than capable of kind of putting
That's
that
in their realm. That's in the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I mean they basically posted those sorts of scores in the last couple of games. So, maybe sort of take inspiration from that Netherlands performance. Basically just get a score on the board and try to put those SA batters under some early pressure if at all possible. Just hope that guys like Heinrich Klassen and Markram and Janssen and co don't get going. But it's not going to be easy. I think conditions will play a part. And I mean, hopefully the fast bowling unit does come good. It's interesting as well in terms of Bangladesh spinners. Even when Shakiba's played, they haven't had a huge amount of success so far in this tournament. And actually, looking at the tournament as a whole, I wouldn't say any of the surfaces have really been properly spin friendly. And one of the disadvantages of Bangladesh's spinners, although that good as they are, they are all orthodox finger spinners, so there's no mystery spin there. So as we've seen in this World Cup, unless if the surfaces aren't that friendly, and if there's not a great deal of pressure on the opposition to sort of take the bowling on, if the opposition batters are just quite content to milk 4-5 singles and over in pursuit of a moderate target, then it becomes very hard for Bangladesh spinners to kind of create, make that breakthrough or to really, make a decisive contribution to the game. So that as well doesn't help.
Okay.
Absolutely. The important thing is, me and Mpho mentioned in an earlier podcast, is you're playing early season. Early season doesn't favour spin. That's so the spin is only going to happen around the semi-final, final period. But the spinners that have done well have been accurate. If you're accurate, you can succeed on these pitches. But if you miss your lines, particularly in Mumbai, if you miss your lines and lengths, you're going. Yeah, it's going. To look just a little bit further than South Africa tomorrow. So, what would be a possible World Cup? Okay, so you've lost to the big guys. You've lost to India. You've lost to England. We know England have been crap, but they were still a top side. You've lost to New Zealand. So, what would be a possible World Cup with all that taken into consideration?
Yeah, I mean, it's worth bearing in mind, Bangladesh have never won more than 3 matches in a World Cup. So in terms of improvement, you would expect, or Bangladesh, if you're in the Bangladesh camp, you would expect to win more than 3 matches, I suppose. So it's a tough ask, isn't it? Okay, they've already got the Afghanistan win under their belt. But that still means they need to win 3 matches against
Netherlands, Sri Lanka is your third, and then Australia looks
nice
very beatable right now.
Australia.
And based on what happened earlier, Pakistan looked very beatable. So how about a semi-final spot with 5 wins?
Well, it's not. I mean, it's not beyond the realms of possibility.
Exactly.
It's unlikely. Let's face it.
Yeah.
But it's not beyond the realms of possibility. They haven't played as. They've only played 4 games, whereas most of the other teams, other than SA and I think a couple of other sides, have only played 4 matches. So in theory, they need to do what England need to do, really, don't they? They're on the same number of points. Actually, they've got a better net run rate than must be said. But I mean, realistically, what would be a passable achievement or something that you could say is an achievement? Like I say, I think they would need to win 3 matches, but also, to beat someone like SA or Australia or Pakistan, because the other kind of interesting thing with Afghanistan winning today is that at the moment they are kind of the story of the World Cup, aren't they? In
Yes.
terms of the team that's kind of upset the odds, and with two very very impressive wins, you couldn't say there's anything kind of streaky or lucky about either of those wins.
Mm.
So in some ways, that kind of puts quite a lot of pressure on Bangladesh, because in some ways, Bangladesh would want to see themselves in that role, i.e., two big wins against two of the big boys, and to really kind of become the story of the World Cup. But at the moment, they're quite far from that happening. So, yeah, I'd say there's pressure there. There's always expectations. We know from the Bangladesh fan base. There's a fanatical fan base back in Bangladesh, and at the start of the competition, there were sort of talks of reaching the semi-finals. Certainly, I'm not sure if any of the players or management came out and actually said it overtly,
Mm.
but certainly there were expectations along those lines from the media, from the fans as well. So yeah, there's pressure there, and yeah, like I say, the hope is that they turn things around tomorrow. Put South Africa into field. 4 hours in the blazing, well, the humidity, I suppose, in 40-degree heat, and then yeah, watch them wilt in the second half of the match.
Yeah, the blazing heat. Tomorrow, the toss is going to be so important because I think teams outside of Afghanistan today who batted incredibly well, chasing the 283, even though I thought it was pretty tough, and it speaks to the top order and the foundation, and I think Bangladesh needs to look to that and
Mm.
use that as a way. Yeah, it's quite interesting because I'm sitting here thinking the wicket at Wankhede is probably one of the best batting wickets you could ever get, but at night it just turns on you.
Yeah,
And that's the thing about this World Cup, right? It's a broadcasters World Cup. I'd have rather played a lot more day games just to give teams a fairer chance, and let the dew factor not be so much. But look, I think obviously Bangladesh have been the darling story of before, so there's no reason why they shouldn't. And I think even looking back at South Africa last year, the way in which everybody had written them off, they come with a pace attack that rivaled ours, and they went away with an ODI series victory. And I think for me, that's what I think Aiden mentioned in his press conferences. You can't underestimate that. And Shakib could have a masterclass tomorrow, even with the shoulder injury, whatever it might be. Mahedi Hassan Miraz, we've seen what he can do. Even Sharaful, I thought in the ODI series last year wasn't great, but in the Test series, I thought it was amazing. And so, yeah, Bangladesh has places where South African dreams can go to die because, yeah,
indeed.
a third loss could bring us in. Yes, Toad.
I've just got a question for both of
Mm-hmm.
you in terms of where do you see SA's campaign at the moment? I mean, it was all seemed doom and gloom, didn't it, after that Netherlands game, and everyone was talking about the chokers tag yet again. But I don't know,
Lord.
it's all been kind of up and down. But I don't know. It's interesting to sort of hear from you what the sense is. For me, it seems like SA have basically got 1 foot already in the semis. But
Oh,
yeah, what's the sense?
Tim, how are you feeling?
So technically, I think you're right. I think we do. I think that is technically correct. But we've seen this before. We've seen this show before. This team is playing so well. They're definitely going to make the semi-finals. They're playing out of their skin. We've seen it. We've seen that show before, and we know what happens. Just to answer your question about the fluctuations in emotions, it's on what's happened in the history. It's the pain. It's the pain. It's the years of pain. It's so that Netherlands game. we weren't surprised. I wasn't surprised. I came on the podcast and I said we should win with a better team. We got the better 11, man for man.
Mm,
It's a longer format. You know, if T20 is it's a different ball game that they've got a chance. Um, but it, it doesn't surprise me that that happened. It doesn't surprise me. What surprised me was the manner and the efficiency of the way they played against England. Not that they beat England. It was the efficiency of
mm,
that. So an old Proteus setup would have still had that lingering thought of what happened against Netherlands or what happened a few days ago. Oh, what happens now? England are 5 down, but they've still got Stokes, etc., 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 etc. There was none of that. There was none of that sort of, you know, Mark Wood hitting those runs didn't affect the game. Was done.
yeah.
The game was over. Um, so I'm quietly optimistic, but that fluctuation you talk about, it is still going to be there. If we
Yeah.
if we lose to India, and you know, if we lose tomorrow, that it's going to be down again. It's going to be
Mm.
down.
Yeah.
Um,
I think
so it's
I'm
there.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm with Tim, but I'm on the other side. Fluctuations will always be there. This the format of this tournament is so long. It's like a 50 over
Mm.
game in itself, and like I feel like we're in the boring middle overs of the tournament where nobody knows where everyone is. Everyone's jostling for positions, and that's where you kind of lose it, right? To and this thing of like I look at the log and I'm like, there's no way India can win 9 games in a row and then win 2 more to win a World Cup. It just does not make sense. They have to lose somewhere. There has to be a collapse of some sort. And I saw that with South Africa. I thought I knew that there was a collapse coming. I thought it'd be against the bigger teams. You're chasing 300 and you're not going to get there because you don't know how to chase. My worry with this team is this. Looking at that batting lineup, there's no reason why we can't walk away with the trophy at the end of it all. They can turn it on when they want to turn it on. When the moment is brightest, they can turn it on, and that's what happened against England, right? And that was my frustration, right? It was how are you so bad at chasing, but you're so good at setting a score and pulling teams away? And I don't know. And Tim's always asked for a mental coach, and I don't know if there is a mental coach, but Rob's
There
good enough as a
is,
mental person. But
but
what is
he's
going
there.
on? Oh, okay. But
Yeah.
that's the frustration with this team is that we all can see, and I think this is the best batting lineup we've taken to a World Cup since we've been at World Cups. And that 2015 team was AB, was Quinton, it was Faf, it was all these names, but this team is better. This batting lineup. Our bowling is another story, and I think it's one of the reasons why we find ourselves in this predicament as a chasing side is that our bowlers can't eke out or defend, like take you 20 or 30 runs less. You're now playing true par scores, but we're not even getting there or giving ourselves a chance to get there. So there'll be more losses. I look at the log today. There's all the teams below us have lost 3 games, and that's all the teams below Australia actually, because that's 4 have all lost 3 games. And I know Australia's going to lose more games in this tournament. So that means you can make the World Cup semi-final with 5 wins. South Africa's sitting on 3. So it's an interesting one because we do have 1 foot, but this tournament is very long. Everyone's is close, and a win tomorrow for Bangladesh makes it even closer. And effectively, it's New Zealand and India at the top, and then everyone else trying to find for 3 and 4. And that's my worry about this side is that they know that bad days will come. I can see it. We all know this. It's a marathon. We're not that good. And I don't even think anyone is that good. And that's why I'm surprised India's getting away with a lot of this. But my worry is how they come up. So the issue for me is if you lose to Bangladesh tomorrow, you've got Pakistan on Friday. Pakistan got humiliated today. You might lose that one too. And so it's just being able to beat the teams that you should be beating. And my issue is the chasing part. Like tomorrow, if Bangladesh win the toss and they bat first, even if it's 150, I'll still be freaking out. It's the nature of what this team is, and it's not a choking thing. It's just a mentality thing. Whereas India are so comfortable chasing because they've got a guy who averages 90 chasing because he's just ridiculous. So yeah, there's no
Our,
reason why we
our,
shouldn't
la-
win the World Cup. But
our
my
last,
word, it's
our
gonna
la-
break my heart.
no, I was just gonna say our last 15 chases, we've won 5.
Yeah,
I mean, the record is just terrible. It's just
Yeah.
terrible.
yeah.
Um,
So like that's why Bangladesh is an interesting proposition because you when we played the Netherlands, they also were beaten
Mm.
throughout this World Cup, and you arrive against the team that you think you should win and you should beat, and you don't have to be at 100%, and you hope that they've learned their lesson. That's the only thing we can hope because if they haven't, this could be 2019 all over again, where you're just spiraling with losses all the way through the tournament, and you only stops at the end when you start winning. Then, but it's too late. So the 3 wins helps. It's just oh my word, like I'm. And the other thing is the South African. Everyone says the South African team's better players will spin. No, I don't buy it yet. I know they are, but in a chasing situation, we all saw what Bangladesh, New Netherlands spinners did, and I think Bangladesh's spinners are better. Which is my question: like, would you not play another spinner just for the dramatic factor of actually this team can can capitulate at any point in time?
Yeah, it's a possibility. So in the game against India, so obviously Shakib didn't play,
Mm,
but I guess they haven't played more than 2 spinners, I guess, in any game so far in the World Cup. So, i.e., they've always been Shakib and Mehdi Hassan Miraj, and basically they're both all rounders, aren't they? But they are the two main spinners. But then in the last game, they brought in Nasim Ahmed in place of Shakib, who's very much a specialist spinner. So yeah, I guess a lot depends on Shakib's fitness tomorrow. I quite like the balance of basically if you've got Shakib and Mehdi, Hassan Miraz in your team, it gives you so many options because they are both frontline all rounders. Really, they'll bowl their 10 over quota and they can bat in the top 5, 6 as well. So that gives you a lot of options. But I'd like to see them play, yeah, as they have done. They've consistently played 3 quick bowlers alongside Shakib and Miraz as well. So yeah, I've got a feeling if Shakib's fit, that they'll probably go with that combination again tomorrow.
yeah. Um, Yeah, it's gonna be quite interesting, Toad. All I'm saying is I wish you all the best. I hope you win all the rest of the matches outside of South Africa. So Netherlands, Sri Lanka, Australia, and who do you have
Australia,
left? Yes. You win all those.
Pakistan.
Yes, Pakistan. Oh yes, that's an easy one. That should be it. Oh, they look like their old selves now, their old World Cup selves. So yeah, we're hoping that it's great, that it goes well for you guys. But yeah, great, good luck for tomorrow. May the toss be in your favor. Um, and yeah, I'm looking forward to a great game of cricket. I think if last ODI series has anything to go about this one's going to be a thriller. And I think that's what we want. We're in the boring middle overs of the tournament and we need to get through somehow. So wish you all the best. And thank you for joining.
Thank you. Cheers. Yeah, let's hope for a good game tomorrow.
Cool. Good luck.
cheers,
Cheers.
Tawhid.
And there you have it. That's Bangladesh. They're here to cause an ups. Well, not an ups. They're here to beat us. They've beaten us before. They've got a better record with us at World Cup. So we played them twice at a World Cup in 50 overs. 2007 in Providence, we lost that one. 2019 in England, we lost that one. So it's going to be quite interesting. Yes, we're all in Bok mania, Springbok fever, everything else. Just put on the TV, let it run. Just check in a little bit more. Hopefully, Tim and the boys can pull it through. But yeah, we wish them all the best, Tim. Yeah, I don't think we're going to get an efficient one, Tim, tomorrow. But I think, yeah, I don't want to say anything
I,
because last week we said
no,
that they were going to win, and then Netherlands showed us miracles. So
I know,
it.
I know, I know, I know. I went on a whole big spiel about how we're gonna smash the Netherlands,
Yeah.
and
And Sebrand Engelbrecht, who played for Western Province, and that's all I could say about him. He was just a guy who played for Western Province. He's now in that Dutch side. Actually, quite a nice little in partnership the other day. Was it yesterday or Sunday? Yeah. For the Netherlands, 150 run partnership to kind of get them some sort of a target that was defendable. But yeah, outside of that, Tim, thank you very much. Enjoy the game tomorrow. We play Pakistan on Friday, so do watch the space if there's going to be another podcast where we talk to somebody from another country that we play, because that's what we do here on the Full Quarter Podcast. So please do like, subscribe, share widely. Remember, Spotify and Apple Podcasts is the name of the game. Outside of that, from myself and Tim, it's good luck Proteas tomorrow. It's goodbye and lesale kakahiso.